Well, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us. We are waiting for brothers and sisters to arrive. But this is the introduction to the community of Kemetic Geomancy and Oracle system that is very precise, very exact. Also, just a general introduction to the different spiritual systems of melanated people across the world. So we're just waiting for other brothers and sisters to arrive before we begin. My name is Khazmik Consciousness, and I'm the author of the book and the creator of the Oracle system you see in front of you. Blah, 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 blah. Thank you. This is brother.
Well, peace everyone. My name is Alo. I am a holistic living practitioner. I utilize indigenous herbalism as well as traditional Chinese medicine. Much of that you will be hearing throughout the course of this presentation. Thank you for being here.
And then a large part of the reason for this presentation is to introduce and to, I don't think this one, to introduce and to reinforce the need to identify with, understand, read, study, and become initiated into melanated indigenous African traditions because of the connections that they give you to understanding the universe and the spirit and your inner self. And even look deeper into, if you're still into the Abrahamic traditions, look deeper into the esoteric nature of their beginnings. Look into the deeper esoteric nature of the Old Testament. Look into the deeper esoteric nature of what Paul says when he's writing that you can become the Christ and that the temple of God is within. These are all melanated indigenous understandings as well, to manifest the divine essence within you. And so that's part of the reason for tonight's presentation as well, to add on to that conversation that needs to continue to go if we are to help and improve the lives of our brothers and sisters on the planet. But we're still waiting. You know, this is my brother, Dr. Quaid. He got his doctorate degree recently. Way in the back. Let's go. I love this is a sauce. All right. Well, this seems to be the crowd at the moment. It is 5:14, and enough time has passed. I will begin the presentation. Welcome everybody to tonight's presentation. Thank you all for coming on such a beautiful day. The day did start off kind of questionable, but it ended up being extremely beautiful. So, in your chairs, you have in front of you a QR code. If you want to, you can scan that QR code and participate in the presentation. I know many times we attend book talks and we sit and watch the presenter speak. You're more than welcome to do that in this one, or you can participate in the presentation. There's some questions in the presentation. Well, basically they're questions, and they're asking you what do you think about certain things, such as the question I had up on the board earlier. What is the best path? What is the best answer for liberation and freedom for the restoration of melanated indigenous peoples worldwide? This is, for me, a very important question because it has been the guiding question of my life for the last 30 years, but predominantly the last 15 years. So this is the foundations of the information and the work. Above is my spiritual guide and teacher, the Baba. It was my association, my initiations at the monastery, which opened up, I want to say, the teachings inside of myself. And then down here is my brother, Dr. Nazirak Amin. My spiritual brother and guide taught me a lot of patience, taught me the value of patience. And my spiritual guide and teacher, Shechem Ran, I'm in the first author of Meta Neter, Volume 1. And my spiritual family from NBC, they're in comments. And my beautiful wife. And no matter how many years go by, I know the important days will always be spent with you. In which all of this work is really a result of our union together and the partnership that we have. Well, a lot of it. I did some of it. So I do have one question, and this is a question for you in the crowd. What is the best path of liberation for melanated people? Question, just literally a question for you. What has been your understanding, or what is your quest, or what is your goal, or what is your understanding that melanated people should? Should we be activists? Should we give all of our energy in responding to the ignorance of others? Because that's what's really going on, is we're responding to the ignorance of others, and we're asking for them to have a rise in their own moral consciousness, because we see them exhibit, or we see people exhibit immoral consciousness and immoral acts all of the time. How should we best use our energy? What is one way that you've come across in your own personal life? I will ask you if you don't answer. To the sister in the yellow and black. Gold and black? Golden with wide lights and eyes. What is one way that you think is the best path for melanated people on their way to liberation? Melanated indigenous people.
Do I need to stand? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
I don't have a very in-depth question, answer, but I would say one. I don't know if I think there's one path. That would be one answer I would have. I don't know that I think there's one path, but I would one of the paths that I would suggest is spiritual enlightenment and development, character development, spiritual development, personal development. Is got to be, to me, one of the major ways in which we can liberate ourselves as people.
Right, and actually that's the exact answer I came to, but I had to come to that after a series of events. I don't even know if this is playing or what.
Next Wednesday at 12, make it. That'd be great because we need a lot of people to sign up and talk against this bill. Because if they don't, the appropriations committee only heard my voice and another lady's voice against the bill. They heard a plethora of other voices for the bill, especially law enforcement voices. But if we can get like Larry Gossett, like Evans, James Blackman come out, brothers such as yourself, Eddie Wolf, and you. Yeah, if we can get people to come out and to show their disapproval of this bill, perhaps we can influence people to vote it down.
Now that was when I was searching for this answer, that was my answer when I was in politics. I had just come from speaking in the Senate of Washington State against House Bill 2712, which would give police more powers to police the community. And then from here, but before I did this, I performed a ritual to Ashe on my own, not knowing what I did, right? I woke up early in January, it was freezing. I went into a lake with my swimwear, and I poured soy milk on myself while I was chanting, right? And then what I noticed after this was a lot of stuff came to me. This came to me, I ended up meeting with the governor that year. I ended up leading the statewide coalition against the House Bill 2712. I ended up being invited to be a part of the Seattle Young Black Leaders Association. A whole bunch of other things started happening. Then I started to realize, I'm never gonna grow spiritually because I've programmed my spirit with activism. And then I was also at this time a delegate for Obama during this time. It was like a lot of Black people were delegates for Obama during this time. It's just, if you were Black and you spoke, you got voted in. And I began to realize Spirit was asking me a question. Do you want to know what your connection is to the universe? Or do you want to continue along this path? Because so far, the energy you have developed and what you've devoted yourself to is the cultivation of this. So I had to do a Sebek Crossroads Eshua Legba move and drop everything. I sold all of my possessions, and then I went into the monastery for 3 months. So this is me in February. This is me in December. Been in a cabin for 3 months, spent the time with a teacher, fasted for 30 days, meditated for 5 hours a day, came out completely different. And I didn't even know what was happening to me back here when this was happening. And so in this quest, Sankofa was very pivotal in my growth and development. I came to Sankofa bookstore all of the time, and there used to be, and this is also, Sankofa has been very pivotal even to the development of the Oracle deck, right? So this used to be the front of Sankofa. And I used to come here all the time. I would eat here every day for lunch, but I was also a gardener. And I was like, why does Sankofa look like this? If this is my community and these are my people, right? So I ended up cleaning it up. We planted, and this sister named Ione, we planted tulips out there, and we spelled love, peace, and Sankofa, right? So what you see out there now is a clean little yard. You don't see the tulips because they're decomposed at this point. That was 13 years ago. But it also, I went around, someone from Howard contacted me, and they said, can you do something bigger on a grander scale? I said, sure. And so what they ended up doing, well, those are not tulips, but that's kind of what I had spelled out. They gave me the side of the towers to work with. Now, this is very interesting because my goal was to create the Congo cosmogram on the side of the Howard Towers, but I came out with 8. And I wondered, now this 8 is interesting because these 8 figures seem to have followed me in this whole journey. And I didn't know why. I was like, I just wanted 4, right? But in order to make it aesthetically pleasing at the time, there was 8. You don't see these here anymore. What's here in the middle is the tree of life. It's still there now at the garden, but these are all gone. The garden has shifted, changed, and taking on a life of its own. New brothers and sisters are in charge, and they're doing their thing with it. This was my contribution to the conscious community at Howard University, to give those brothers and sisters that are attuned to meditation, holistic living, a space for expression. And it's been very beautiful since. Now, this is the Kikongo Cosmogram. This is African spirituality, which in today's world, in this group, in this community, African spirituality is the norm. It's very, around the corner. Everybody does it here. It's not the norm around the rest of the country, right? And so what is the norm around the rest of the country at the moment is Eastern spirituality. There needs to be a push in understanding the depth of our African-based spiritual systems as well. So this is the Kikongo Cosmogram. Now, those of us familiar with spiritual teachings and spiritual ways, we can look at this diagram and understand what's going on. When we're born, there is an assessment of who we are, like what it is on the planet that's occurring, what talents have we developed in our past lives, and what talents we need in order to manifest our purpose and our mission in this life, and how can we contribute to bringing balance to the world. And so this is kind of the first part of our life, right? We're trying to understand this, right? And in many African-based spiritual systems and traditions, we've come up with methods and ways of communicating with the universe in order to win from the universe that information and that answer. There are different divination systems, different oracles, different ways of doing that. And that's the African-based way of doing that, of understanding that tradition. And then towards the latter end of the life, this is where eldership begins. But eldership here is when we are able to, after we've manifested our purpose, able to help those younger brothers and sisters that are coming along the path and guide them into the community that we have helped develop. There's no point in time where we are not a part of the community. And then in transition, there's an assessment of what's been done. There's the addition to our spiritual character of what we have won, the information, the knowledge, the talents of what we have won. And then we become an ancestor. We are in the ancestral realm, depending on how we do here. In the ancient Kemet, this was the judgment scene. In Christianity, this is Jesus in the judgment scene. Paul borrowed that same iconography and said Jesus will judge you when you pass. It's the same iconography in Kemet where Osiris will judge you or wake up heart when you pass. It's the same iconography. What happens is there is a judgment scene. Is your heart devoted to the divine essence, or did you allow yourself to be lured in by the lower nature and then allow the soul to become murky? So this is the Kikongo Cosmogram, and that energy is what is here on the campus. Now the book started off kind of as like, I was thinking of an initiation kind of manual for the Society of Holistic Living and Meditation for those younger brothers and sisters coming up. I was sitting at home like still going to the school, teaching different classes. But I was like, well, let me just have a manual for them, so they could I don't have to be here all the time talking, right? So it started off like this. But then I got discouraged at a certain point, and I stopped writing, but I had known the Oracle system this whole time. And then I went to Africa for the first time with my father-in-law, Dr. Owa and Kama. And we were in, I think it was Benin, and there was there's this voodoo shop up the street. And, I couldn't speak to the brother. I didn't speak French or the brother's language, but because the Oracle system is connected to Ifa, I had studied about the Ogun and different artifacts that are associated with Ifa. And so I was in the store, and I ended up saying what the name of certain artifacts were, and he was kind of looking at me, and it looked like he was questioning. So I got on the ground and I started drawing figures. And then he got on the ground and he began to draw the same figures. And then we were drawing figures back and forth, saying their names. And I was looking at them, wow, this is amazing. We're having an Afrocentric conversation, a Pan-African conversation through divination. Like we were making a connection without really speaking language, without having to use the colonizer's language, we were using the divine language in order to communicate. We weren't saying much, but it was beautiful. And so then I was like, okay, all right, ancestors, this was clearly a sign. Let me go ahead and finish this work. And it's been a work in progress. It's gone through many different phases and changes and adaptations. And what you learn as an author is you just have to say no. Like, I'm done. Like, this is it. And so that's what this is. Now, this book has 3 different aspects to it. The first part is different spiritual principles, which talks about the types of men depending on the level of consciousness and the part of the brain that they're operating out of. For more in-depth information on this, refer to Shechem or Shechem's work. Many of his works, especially Volume 1, Meta Volume 1, where he breaks down the different types of men. And in Eastern society, there's the egoic man, the higher man, and then the divine man, so to speak. In the Meta, it's the Sahu, the Ab, and the Ba man. And then I go into Afro conceptions of man. We talk about the chakra systems. I go into the A-way conception of the soul, and then a technique of vibrational healing, which is why you see the drum and the crystal bowl here, because using vibrational wave healing, some of you have already experienced some of this with me, in order to help elicit healing modalities within you. And then the last part of my book is the oracle system. And then I trace the particular tree that we use to Gnosticism, and then to the College of Meneptah in ancient Egypt, and the impact that the philosophical system of Meneptah had upon the development of Western philosophy, because we still in a very diminished way practice from the priesthood of Oracle of Meneptah. Whenever we go to church on Sunday and we say in the beginning was the word, because Ptah said in the beginning was the word, his who, using his Sia, his divine insight, to look back into the noon to bring forth the ideas and the forms of creation that was there. That's the esoteric understanding of where the person who wrote the book of John got that. That logos, the word, was always in that system. What's gone on now is we've had a concentrated effort of people who want to control our direction and our connection with the divine essence, telling us this is the way. When our African brothers and sisters came up with a complete system that's so strong in a diminished way, it's still affecting us and impacting us to this day. It's just hidden, as one of our mentors would say, in plain sight. So this is a breakdown of kind of the beginning part of the book, just explaining the different types of man. And we can really see this, like, egocentric brothers and sisters they're really into themselves. Look at me, I'm good. Look at what I just done with my hair. Look at my shoes. Look at my clothes. Look at me, I'm the best. That's your egocentric brother and sister. And then it also goes into basic survival, which in today's capitalistic world is like, look at the car I'm driving, look at the house I have, or I need your car, I need your house, I need your things. This is the egotistic Sahu man, right? And this is where he is. And then this person is also typically geocentric. I'm from Seattle, I'm from the West Coast, I'm from the East Coast, I'm from the Midwest, I. Identification with the personal ego that has manifestation only in this realm of existence. And then you move up, mammalian brain, so on and so forth, until you get to the highest level of consciousness, which understands that we all come from the divine essence, and that we are all part of the divine essence. And through cultivation of our spirit, through the cultivation of our consciousness, we can experience that divine essence, and not our inexperience. This inexperience occurs through several different ways. It's fasting, it's meditation, and it's ritual. Those are the 3 major methods of cultivation, conscious cultivation, that you'll find throughout all the different initiation systems. And isolation. Isolation is another form. It's usually the first form, that brothers and sisters go through when they go through initiation. You get taken away from your normal self in order to be initiated into your higher self. And the difference between African-based spiritual systems of initiation and Eastern-based is you don't stay away. That's the difference. It's like a college. You go, you get the experience of the divine self, you get tools to help the community, and then you come back to the community as a healed brother and sister with the tools and the strategies and the techniques to help heal others. The Eastern mode of thought is, let me just experience it, and then you have to come to my level. And that's just the way they decided to do that. Africans decided to be more communal, and that's just how it is. Now, the interesting thing is we can see that that's one of the most successful ways of being, because Kemet, which was an African-based civilization, that was the method. And that lasted for over 3,000 years of being very prosperous. We have other countries that just focus on spirituality, yet they are lacking in their ability to take care of their people. So we see extreme forms of spirituality. We see the extremes, extreme heights of spirituality and extreme depths of poverty. That's not what you experience in ancient Egypt and African-based systems. Are we good for time?
5:35.
Oh, you're good.
All right, so the one thing about African cosmic conceptions of being is that we're multidimensional, right? That's the first thing. Whenever you study a melanated system, you're always going to get several different aspects to the soul. It's not like you have a soul, you have a spirit and a body. You know, Paul tried to be a little bit, try to engage in the mystery sciences that were around, but when you get into an African-based, indigenous melanated system, you're going to have a whole plethora of different aspects of the self. You're going to have something related to your emotional body, your mental body, because those two, you can cultivate them both. You can cultivate your mind, and you can have a different relationship with your emotions. Both of those, they were considered different parts of the self. Then you have your conscious self, and which is that's part of the self that is making the decisions. And then you have another aspect of the self that is constantly always connected with the divine essence, right? And you have variations on this theme in different systems, right? This is one system. You have the divine essence, which would be like Nun Amen. Then you have the spark that is yourself coming out of the divine essence, right? It's like one big, I should have did a diagram, but it's like one line coming out of the divine, coming out of the all. And then you go down to the planetary, your karmic self, you get another part of you. As you are manifesting in physical existence, your past is considered, and your karma that you've done in the past, all the actions that you've done in the past is added to you as you are manifesting from the divine self down to the physical. And then you're given the egoic personality, which is like assessing. All right, this is a theory. Let me just say it's a theory. Your spiritual guides, your ancestors, those beings that can manifest on a higher level, take account of the energies that are on a planet at a specific time to give you birth. And so then you are born with talents that are necessary and needed for you to manifest your talent, your future, and your destiny. So this is an African cosmic conception, or indigenous melanated cosmic conception of being, which you take and you can apply anywhere. Take that understanding and go to the Native American tradition, and it's still there, maybe in a different form. You have crow dog, you might have bear and rabbit doing something, but it's still the same conception. There's energies on a planet manifesting at a certain time. You were born through that time, and then you have certain energies in order to do what you need to do to move the society forward. And this is the 14 chakra system brought out by Shechem Ra-Nephram the first, which is a more in-depth understanding than the 7 chakra system that we have. The current 7 chakra system that we have is a popular chakra system that was brought forth by Sir Arthur Woodruff in the Serpent Power. So Sir Arthur Avalon in the Serpent Power back in the 1920s, early 1920s, late 1919s. And that's why we have now this 7 chakra system inside the West. Whenever people talk about mindfulness and chakras, and they're talking about the 7 chakra system alone, that's because that was the first system that was brought to the West. But they don't know that there's other systems besides the 7. Shechem brought forth an understanding on how to manifest the 14 chakra system by introducing the other chakra systems, the Talu chakra, the Manas chakra, which is the mind. The Talu chakra is in the back of the throat. It drips in essence, like a divine essence, once you are meditating at a certain level. We all know the Ajna, the third eye chakra, the Nirvana chakra, and the Guru chakra. The interesting thing about the Nirvana chakra is when you begin your spiritual journey and your spiritual development, your Nirvana chakra also holds within it all your karma. So then when you begin, most people begin their spiritual journey, they come and they say, I started meditating and I had this wild experience. The dog came and attacked me. I fell off a chair when they didn't have a chair. Something really funny, something wild. But that's because you are saying to the universe, instead of going through multiple lives in order to get rid of this karma, I am going to initiate myself now to manifest this karma in one life. So you have to clear out your register, so to speak. The scales have to be balanced so that you can become a healthy, healed individual to heal others. The universe needs brothers and sisters who have dealt with their own self in order to help others deal with themselves. Because the more imbalanced we are as a people, as a species, the more imbalanced the earth will be. As we are imbalanced, as we do not have structure, as we do not have ma'at, as we have more isfet in our lives, we cause more isfet on the planet. Now, what's going to end up happening is the planet will right itself. We're not destroying the planet. That's a false conception. We are destroying the environment, which makes life habitable for humans on the planet. The planet will get rid of us like a fever. So this is the importance of African melanated indigenous knowledge. We knew that. We didn't have to do that. We represented that as APEC. One of the ways in which APEC can be represented. This is the A-way, cosmic conception of being, which is very similar. In the A-way, you have a guardian spirit, which is called your Aklama, or your guardian spirit. This will be like, when you come, in the A-way conception of being, you exist in this realm of the ancestors. And then when you come down, you go into one of 7 huts to receive your destiny. Now, I was not initiated into that system, but my guess is those 7 huts represent Shango, Ogun, Oya, Imaya, so on and so forth, to receive your destiny. And this becomes then your guardian spirit. And in your life, in order for you to, not in order, but appealing to your guardian spirit, your Ori, that is over your head, that will guarantee you more success in your endeavors. And then you have the Nutilla, which is the physical body. You have your Gogo, which is your spiritual breath. And your Kapole, which is your incarnation vows. Right? These are the vows that you've agreed to prior to your incarnation here in the physical plane. And this is a diagram I created to try to show you the conception of the A-way. So when it's time for you to manifest on the planet, or if there is a need for you, because in your past incarnations, you have a particular wisdom, you have a particular talent that is beneficial, or you have a particular lesson that you need to learn on the planet at a particular time. Therefore, you manifest, but before you do, you go into one of these houses in order to receive your destiny. But you'll also notice that when you're in these houses or when you manifest on the planet, you also have these characteristics in yourself. And it is through the adherence to these characteristics that you become successful. This is just one system. You have all of these different systems inside of Africa, inside of different indigenous melanated spirituality. When it comes to what is going to help liberate our people, when it comes to what is going to help bring balance to our community, this is it. Because every time we've adhered to this, we've always protected our community. Whenever in the late 1700s, early 1800s, after the Haitian Revolution, a lot of the brothers and sisters went to the Louisiana territories. And when they came there, what started happening was Maroon rebellions. Why? Because we began to use our African-based spirituality to manifest self-determination. Why? Because in our African-based system, Ubuntu, which is balance, which is ma'at, is of paramount importance. It's like an unconscious drive. What is balance? This is imbalance. Let me get rid of it. There's no question. There's no debate. Let's do it. Let's call upon our African spiritual traditional systems, manifest the energy, and get rid of this imbalance, this hisfet in front of us. It's a little bit different than marching and protesting, just a little bit. Because what ends up happening is we create communities. Our African brothers and sisters that have adhered to our African traditional ways of being, they create communities that manifest their cultural understanding of the universe. And then they make those communities move forward throughout space and time. When we don't have that, we're asking others to help us out. We've never done that in history, not when we were great. We've always used our own internal self-knowledge to move us forward into the future. Once again, the cosmic conception of being, over this. So those of you that scanned the code, I don't see anybody looking at their phone, so I don't think you scanned the code. But this is a kind of the participation part of the presentation. Match it up if you want. So what you do is you just click on them and you match them and you got a pair. And let's see how you all are doing. But this is what it is. It's not protesting. When we adhere to our African traditional-based systems, I was watching this yesterday. I interviewed Professor Nubia Kai on Maroons in America, right? And she was discussing with me the Maroons that were in the Louisiana territories. Good job, brother. And she told me about Palmares and the Quilombos in Palmares. And I was watching this movie called Quilombo. You can watch it on YouTube. And as you were watching it, the European people came in to try to kidnap the kids. The kids ended up beating them all up and they started flipping and doing capoeira on them. Why? Because they had their culture inside of them. They were not afraid, even of the guns that they held. The Europeans came, they tried to scare them, the kids jumped them. And we're talking about like they were younger than 10. That was a good representation of what adhering to African cultural traditions and cultural systems will do for you internally. Let's see how everybody did. Okay. Moving forward. All right. Something else in the book, I use a few acupuncture points, particular points that elicit strong healing effects. Kidney one, I'm not gonna touch anybody's foot. Sorry. It's just not gonna happen. But in the book, one thing about the book is I talk about the importance of meditation. The book will show you a pathway of self-cultivation, which will give you the experience of the divine within. The thing about African traditional-based systems is it's not about conversation. It's not about, can we connect this scripture with this scripture to prove this point? No. Can you engage in this practice to get this experience? That's the African traditional system. That's the indigenous melanated system. Let me show you how you are divine. Not just walking and running around, I'm God, I'm goddess, I'm better than you. That's silly. That's so silly. Because the point of cultivation is to be a servant. We are here to serve others. I am here to serve you in the best way I can. But I can only serve you if I serve myself. If I cultivate myself so I can be the best for you. That's Africa. That's melanated indigenous traditions. That right there. And that's what you will go through when you get initiated. And then you are given an experience. If you go to Africa right now, you could, like when we were in Benin, and they said they take the sister and they put her in a hut, and she, in one of the initiation systems in Benin, they take a young sister, They prefer purity. They said they were having a hard time finding that. So they look for either purity or elders. And they take the young sister or the elder and they put them in a hut for 3 days. And in the hut, they go into trance and they meditate with snakes. And those of us that are initiated, we understand the energy and the symbolism behind snakes. And we understand what happens when you fast and you pray, specifically for so many days. First couple of days, first couple of hours is very hard. And then you begin to transcend in consciousness and experience different things. And then they go on to do a few other things. But it's always the same formula. Fasting, meditation, ritual. It's always the same formula in order to access the divine essence within you and watching your diet. So I tell you how to find books. This is my drawing. This is what is also interesting. For those of us that are already familiar with and initiated into the Western traditions, reading Shekham's son's work, Anita Amen, he talks about the Temple of Dendera. And I went and I started to look at the Temple of Dendera, and I found this diagram. It says the 10 dead, they call them unknown dead deities of Dendera. And this is what is important here, right? Because I'm always searching for the particular Palpnet root or tree of life that we use, right? I'm always searching for that. I came close here. But what was really interesting is this right here. This is from the temple itself, right? Each of these is a wooden column, and it stands for great. Now I have a question for you. Well, who do you think this is? Each single column stands for great. So this thing right here is how many, is what? Say it again. What deity do we know? What information or what tradition do we know where they say something is 3 times great? What is that called? What is it called? Anybody? Huh? It's good. So those of you that are familiar with the esoteric traditions, Jehudi, what do we call the sage of the esoteric traditions? Who is the biggest sage in the esoteric tradition? Hermes Trismegistus. Hermes thrice great. Who is Hermes? Hermes is Jehuti. What is Jehuti called here? By the Kemetans themselves, thrice great. The entire Western tradition is a diluted Kemetic science. Right there, that was dope. I'd never seen that before. So that I go through that presentation as I break down each of the glyphs and then show you. This is where, in the Temple of Dendera, in this particular fashion, the deities are not called deities except for a few. So this is the deity Nejum and Nejum. This is an epitaph for Ptah. This right here is called a determinative. The determinative will tell you what the hieroglyphic script is trying to say. But not all of the glyphs here have a determinative next to them. So they're titles. They're titles of the deities. There's different deities here. But I thought that was very interesting, and so I've included it in the book. It's called Awu, thrice great. That is also the image on the back of the book. Okay, is there any questions before now? That's the first part of the book. Brother Alo, you kind of been there, appreciate it. You want to speak at all?
Peace, everyone. First, let me give thanks and honors to my mother and father, my teachers, Mama Candace, and Ezia Okoye. Let me give thanks and honors to your brother and also your guide, Dr. Nazareth. Amen, as he was the first practitioner in my life that awoke me to this kind of a path. Okay. I've been meditating for about 10 years. This will be year 11 for me. And so I come into this tradition through meditation, and it evolves through meeting brothers such as Khazmik himself. And from there, it becomes my own work. Through serving my own self, I've become one in service to others. And I've been doing this for about 6 years now, being a holistic living practitioner. And as he goes into the text and begins to talk about these different patterns and figures, he'll reveal some of the things that I've been using, that everyone across the globe uses, in the construction of these 4 elements in their many different states. I guess I'll just put it in there right there.
Okay. All right. I think I got the presentation a little backwards. But so the oracle system itself is called geomancy. Geomancy is literally one of the oldest oracle systems in the world that has had millions of users. And that's very important because when I first started working with the deck, I started wondering about why is it so accurate, right? But then I realized there's an entire ancestral line that is coming through the 16 figures. Now I'll explain that a little bit later. But with these 16 figures, you get all of these other different systems. Now, you get some nationalistic brothers and sisters that say Ifa is not Kat al-Ramal. Ifa is not Ramal Sastra from India. Ifa is not the 8-tablet system of Pa, which is in South Africa. But they all use the same 16 figures with very, 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 very similar understandings. And so my brother, who's back in Seattle, is a Babalawo at the moment. When I first came up with the system, I gave a lecture in Seattle, and I wanted to see what was going to happen. We both tested the system. And so when I did a reading, the figure that I came up with in the system in Kemetic Geomancy is called Charette, and Ifa is called ED, right? So in Ifa, ED, it means it has a lot to do with the sisters, feminine energy, so on and so forth. Charette in Kemetic Geomancy deals with limitations. It deals with structure. It says something may not happen now or in the way in which you want it to, or it's just going to take a long. Charette kind of is like a prison to a degree, so a walled-in room. You want to get out, but you can't, right? So then when I gave the lecture, nobody was there, right? It might have been like 8 people, it was like 4 people, right? I still did it. But then what ended up happening was there was a doctor, Dr. Maxine Mims, who's the president of Evergreen College, and who has like a long legacy of activism in Seattle, was giving a lecture that night. And the people that would have been at my lecture, my community, was there, right? So that tied it all together. That was the feminine element and my lack of success in reaching people. But what was beautiful was there was a brother in the audience from Northern Africa who said that his people in the caves and in the mountains used this same system in order to, divine. So there was another connection there. It's beautiful. Even the last time I was in Africa, this last time I had to make a decision really fast. And I ended up doing the divination, and like everybody in the store stopped. It was like dead silent. And then it was just like automatic respect given. And it was very interesting. There's a power in the system, and it's definitely something there. The system, the divination system, I think is a living system, because the energy, I know how to sound, but the energies and the exactness of the system is just there. So I'm constantly trying to trace things. Where does it come from? Where does it come from? Where does it come from? My talent, I do receive downloads from the universe, as we like to call them nowadays. But my specific talent is in research. It's like a detective game, connecting dots. Where did this come from? Because we should be able to trace it throughout history. And so the oldest semi-reference to this type of system I found in the Demotic Magical Papyrus on page 264. And this is a divination system from ancient Egypt that this is talking about how You write the names of the gods on several different leaves and you take them away two by two. In geomancy itself, not in this system, the way in which is taught here, but you do this thing called scrying. You mark. And we'll show you a video where they're doing this in Africa. And you take them away two by two, and then you receive a figure through that. And then that's how you come up with your reading. So this is me at the time tracing. So Kemetic Geomancy is based off of, it's connected with the tree of life, the Paltnetaru. The current Paltnetaru, because if we look at the Paltnetaru, we look at Kabbalah, we see the similarities. So where does Kabbalah come from? Why is there an esoteric tradition in Judaism? That all traces back to the 1st century when Gnosticism was on the rise. And so I particularly think that the 32 eons of the Valentinian Gnostic system is related to the 10 major arcana and the 22 minor arcana of the tarot system today, when we look at the past. Because what ended up happening when Christianity was coming about as a mystery system, certain mystics went into Egypt and learned the Egyptian system and then came up with their own emanationist philosophy based on that system. So they took the name of Ra away and replaced it with Bithos and Siege. So what you have in the Gnostic Christianities, which is the esoteric Christianity that teaches you, like Paul said, you can become a Christ. The temple of God is within, which is different than Judaism because it is a mystery religion. They took these concepts and adapted them for the social, political, cultural context of the times. That's what it seems, because when you look at these 32 eons, and then you look at the 32 paths on the tree, you see something very similar, at least in number. Right? But when you have esoteric Judaism, when people are saying this is Judaism, Judaism esoterically is Egyptian. That's what is coming out. Because the Kemetic priests of the Memphite Kemetic priests, particularly I think there was a priest named Cheramon who was brought to Rome by Nero in order to teach Kemetic system there. I think he had a lot to do with creating the system of Gnosticism that we saw flourishing. So now, in reference to the 16 figures in Kemetic Geomancy, these are the association and the energies that are associated with each of the figures. I don't know, this might not mean much at this moment. You have to kind of get the book and read it, look at the video. If you were to buy the Oracle deck, on the back of the deck, there's a card called Access. It has a QR code. You scan the code, it takes you to a video which explains the use of the deck in the system. And once again, that takes me back to the King Congo cosmogram. Because when you're doing geomancy, there are only 8 figures that you can come up with. Out of all the figures, there are only 8 that become what they call judges. And these are the 8 figures that you can come up with. And they're all variations of yin and yang of the elements, fire, air, water, and earth, right? Which I kind of trace back to the Memphite theology of being Hu-Hu-Het, Ku-Ku-Het, Amun, Amunet, and Nun-Nunet. The 8 divine energies within Nun manifested in both positive and negative, expressions of polarity. Here's all the systems where the 16 figures are found. When you learn geomancy, when you learn Kemetic Geomancy, it connects you to our ancestral legacy as humans. Like, you are learning a system that is one of the most widespread, definitely melanated African-based spiritual divination systems on the planet. You can go to Brazil, you can go to Congo, you can go to South Africa, you can go to Nigeria, you can go to Ghana, you can go, and they're there. Used a little differently, said a little differently, but they're there. My brother My brother thinks that it had a multi-regional kind of like evolution. Like this is just what we thought happens. This is how we interacted with the energies. There is one way of looking at it, but let me.
The most complex example of an algorithmic approach to fractals that I found was actually not in geometry, it was in symbolic code. And this was Bamana sand divination. And the same divination system is found all over Africa. You can find it on the East Coast as well as the West Coast. And often the symbols are very well preserved. So each of these symbols has 4 bits. It's a 4-bit binary word. You draw these lines in the sand randomly. And then you count off, and if it's an odd number, you put down 1 stroke, and if it's an even number, you put down 2 stroke. And
when he says count off, what you're doing is you're striking off the doubles. What's left is that single line. He's doing this for each of the lines, and what he comes up with is this figure here. That's what he means by counting off. The same system that we saw earlier in the demonic Greek magical papyrus, by taking away 2 by 2 until you have 1 left.
they did this very rapidly, and I couldn't understand where they were getting. They only did the randomness 4 times. I couldn't understand where they were getting the other 12 symbols. And they wouldn't tell me. They said, no, I can't tell you about this. I said, well, look, I'll pay you. You're our teacher, and I'll come each day and pay you. I said, no, it's not a matter of money. This is a religious matter. And finally, out of desperation, I said, well, let me explain George Cantor, 1877. And I started explaining why I was there in Africa. And they got very excited when they saw the Cantor set. And one of them said, come here, I think I can help you out here. And so he took me through the initiation ritual for a Bamana priest. And of course, I was only interested.
So this is this person reporting on his experience with the system. But notice how he's going to tell you how he went through an initiation. There's an initiation that you go through before you really work with the divination system. And that's in Africa. This is in India. I don't know if y'all speak Urdu.
I'm Divyanshi Vadra, class 12, and from Deepest Greater Faridabad. And I have also had some previous lessons from Sir and Ma'am, Reiki 1 and Reiki 2. उनका भी experience बहुत अच्छा था. Reiki is like a wonderful thing.
But notice the way she has the 16 figures in the background. This is called Ramal Sastra in India. A very old ancient system in India. So we have it right now in Africa, and we have it in India thus far. And this is the sand divination that the man was talking about.
These are the sand diviners of Burkina Faso, Africa. They are using an extraordinary mathematical system to connect through geomancy to spirit in order to receive clarity and guidance.
The person tapping the earth is our friend Karim. He's speaking a prayer on our behalf. The earth, the sand, is the medium through which information.
As you study the system, because of time, as you study the system, you'll notice that the production of the figures all is dependent upon the material development of the culture you find yourself in. So for us, for many of us that are familiar with the Ifa systems, we know cowrie shells, the 1, 2 female, male side of the cowrie shells. Without cowrie shells and without writing utensils, you have sand divination. But when you study it in other systems, like in India, they have dice methods of producing the 16 figures. Or what they're doing right now is that same, making it several lines and then taking it away 2 by 2.
triangles. Each of them contains 4 lines.
This is
Air
in
line,
this is in
Fire line,
Arabia,
sorry.
Saudi Arabia.
air line, water line, dirt line. Fire line, air line, water line, dirt line. Each line may contain a single dot or 2 dots. For the case of making things faster, I 2 dots write it as a stripe like this, or a short line. If you want to draw
Yes, sir.
With the same divination, what device are they using to come up with the line that they're trying to tell?
With sand divination, they're making dots. They go into what they call a trance. So they just and they cross around 2 by 2, and then they put the dominant figure over here, so to speak. That's with sand divination. You can do that with sawdust. You'll find different ways depending on where you go throughout Africa. You know, basically, how do you get a binary, code? How do you produce the binary code? 1, 2, 1, 2, positive and negative. Because our ancestors, or the universe itself, there's an operation on the lower levels of duality, good and bad, hot and cold. There's an operation of the duality of the elements. So what we're looking at, whenever we produce a figure, is the operation of the elements within a situation.
So we're utilizing the tool of the person in trance, basically.
Well, the person in trance doing the figures has been initiated. So correct. Now, this is one theory on the spread of the system, originating from here and spreading out, originating within the Nile Valley region and spreading from there. And this is what I'm going off of based on the Menefer, the spread of Menefer philosophy through the Gnostic systems, tracing them through esoteric Christianity, esoteric Judaism, esoteric Islam. Because if you have an esoteric, whenever you hear the word esoteric, you might as well just say Egypt. Because the esoteric Judaic systems, Christianity comes off of Judaism, Islam comes off of Judaism. As it was a struggle for survival in the 1st century AD, there was a blending of Kemetic Gnosticism, Kemetic wisdom with Judaism. And that's what we have. And then the esoteric systems of the West is remnants and echoes of the Kemetic system. And then you have the spread there. Or you might have this, which is it arising naturally based upon humans' interaction with the elements of the world. But the similarities of the system, when you look at cultural continuity between space and time, suggest a transmission of knowledge. And this is a breakdown of how you would do each figure. There's the breakdown again. And in the deck now the way in which I've worked with it, because I asked myself a question, why is it that no one knows about this? So as I learned this in the monastery, when I'm in the monastery, there's really nothing to do in a cabin. When you're not meditating, you're kind of just sitting there, watching the bugs crawl around and looking at the birds fly. So what I ended up doing was reading a lot. Tons of books, hundreds and thousands of books. I used to stop counting books and just counting pages. One summer I read 12,000 pages. Then I got frustrated because I looked at a book and I couldn't remember what was on page 98. I was like, why am I reading all these books? But this is through all of that information, I found this system. And I always question myself, why is it not more widely used? It's one of the oldest oracle systems on the planet, but it's not widely used. Why? Because of the mathematical calculations and coming up with the different figures. And over the course of time, there was a long process of me working with the system. If I had read others, one thing I'm learning is that I am not new. Others, if I have had a premonition, if I've had a revelation, so have others. And so you'll see others have come up with something similar but was unable to produce exactly what I've done, which is produce a way in which to have that entire, there's a shield, it's called a shield chart. So when you produce a figure, you put it here in the first house, house of destiny, then you move on. And then there's this complex, not complex, there's calculations that you do in order to produce these three figures here. These three figures here are the essence of the reading. This will tell you what is happening currently and in the past. You know, you've experienced loss in the past, or you're thinking too much, or you're locked in a box, or there's some feminine energy going on around here, something's up with this, or here. In the future, if you continue along this path, this is what the future is going to look like. Here's the energy that you're going to experience in the future. So there's over 72,000 combinations or different charts to produce this. No, it was like 60,000. But there's only 72 different ways of producing these three figures here. And then that's what the cards are. The interesting thing now that I've experienced and I've known about the cards is I get quicker readings. So I can explore a person's situation faster. I can explore different aspects of what they're going through with more speed and accuracy than using this. This is a little bit complex. At my job, when I would make important decisions, I would be doing this. I have hundreds of pages of this, and people would ask me, what am I doing? I would just say I'm drawing. And they don't know. You know, they don't know. So I made many great decisions in meetings based on doing oracle, which way should I answer this question? And I would be marking a little right here, and I'd wait till they come around to me. And I would get like a reading like, you must bring balance to the situation. I would get a sit-back reading, or a Spirit 8. You know, you have to find a way in order to communicate and join two opposing sides. Like, okay, how do I do that? I just speak to that. And then I had many successful meetings based upon that. That's when I had to do it this way. But this would take like 6-7 minutes to do. Right? With this, you get it faster, you get to explore different aspects of it. It's very interesting, and it's very precise. So here are the 8 figures. These are the fire lines, the air ones, the water ones, and the earth. Each of these figures have a particular meaning. This is like the sun is shining on you when everything is going your way, you're in the zone. Right? You haven't missed a shot. This is you need to organize your team. You're still doing well, but you need to put some effort because y'all missing a few of the key players. You need to put it all together. Each symbol has a meaning, but there's only these 8 that are produced out of the 16 figures in the geomantic system. Okay? Oh, if you want to do the quizzes are there. And that is all. I could go longer, but that is that for that. Alan?
Peace, everyone. Yeah, so me, myself, I use the 8 figures as the 8 patterns when it comes to healing the organs of the body. And I did learn this through traditional Chinese medicine, but I very much like pairing it with the work of Ashe, because a lot of times we have to work with the totality of a person's being to actually arrive at the cause of what's causing their disease. As we know, disease is manifesting on the higher planes and then being formed biologically in the body through the person's habits, behaviors, thus psychological patterns, which do produce certain temperaments. And these temperaments would be those tempered mental states that create the conditions of the body, those primarily being first of yin and yang, and then of the cold and the hot, the wind and the air, the damp, the excessive, and the deficient, right? And so through use of the 8 patterns, I am able to assist people by doing particular kinds of readings with the body. Now, I met Khazmik probably about 3 or 4 years ago. And at that time, I had some of my herbal extracts on me. I was speaking with the brother about them, and he was sharing this system with me. And I was really happy that he was producing this. And at that time, I shared one of my extracts with him. And I remember saying to him, like, I really would like to get a hold of this work, and see how I could really incorporate this in what I do. And it was a few months ago when I actually saw the brother Khazmik here. I was getting a copy of the Sese at the time, of which I've since given to one of my good friends. And on the day that I was calling to ask for the Sese, Khazmik actually called me and said he was going to bring this book by the house. And so since then, I had been studying and reading this book. It's been a joy to have with me, and I very much intend to utilize it as a way of reading and inscribing, as opposed to the TCM. While I like the 8 patterns themselves, a lot of times I am merging with Ashekim Ashekim's work to arrive at the final cause of the actual situation. And in this work, I am able to just fully step into that and a singular path, if that makes sense. So for me, I very much see this as a way forward when it comes to working with people in health and wellness. I've worked with a lot of different kinds of individuals and have remedied a lot of different situations, which I may share about later if you ask me. But
Okay, so that is the end of that part of the presentation. Before we move on, are there any questions? All right, so the next part of the presentation, we wanted to give you a small kind of experience of the vibrational healing session. So we're basically going to ask you to sit in a comfortable position with your back straight and your feet on the floor, your hands on your lap, please. And close your eyes. And I want you to just practice breathing very, very slowly. Breathe in through your nose. Breathe out through your nose. Be very, very gentle with yourself. Be at ease with yourself. Breathe in, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out, 2, 3, 4. Breathe in, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out, 2, 3, 4. Breathe in, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out, 2, 3, 4. Continue to breathe very slowly, very rhythmically. Be at ease with yourself. Be at peace with yourself. Be relaxed. You are totally and comfortably relaxed. Take your attention and move your attention down to your legs, down to your feet, and completely and totally relax. Relax the mind, relax the body, be at peace and be at ease. And 100% Now move your attention up the body to the chest, to the stomach, and will your chest, will your stomach to relax. Be at peace, be at ease, be comfortable, be relaxed. Open your eyes carefully, slowly. Come back. Focus your attention on your hands. Focus your attention on your legs. Open your eyes and come back. So when you're doing that, in the book you're using the points, and then you definitely feel the energy moving, and you're helping and moving that has those vibrational waves are going through you because you're accessing or activating the energy in those points. It is eliciting a healing response. So, thank you. That's it. Yeah, I'm taking questions, please.
You mentioned, you said that you had a question.